Two press conference calls on today's show, one from Congressman Reed and one from Senator Gillibrand. Stay with us.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Ryan O'Neill.
Congressman Tom Reed's weekly press calls, opening statements, talked about an Wlea issue. We're going to skip the opening statements for Congressman Tom Reed's weekly press call. Get right to the questions. First one came from the Evening Tribune's Jason Jordan.
Hey there, Congressman. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Jason. How you doing?
Oh, not bad. I just wanted to chat briefly about the comments you had yesterday on Twitter about the president's meeting with President Putin there. You stated that if the Mueller probe came to an end, things would sort of get better. Is that regardless of the outcome, or are you anticipating one outcome over another?
No, I think with an open-ended investigation a year and a half long, I think we're at the point where Mueller should wrap up this investigation, issue its conclusions, hold those that need to be held accountable. And I don't go into this with any preconceived outcome that I see for the investigation, other than what I believe the evidence has shown on the issue. There's been no evidence presented to me, and I think Mueller is potentially finding this in his investigation, and that's why we need to wrap this up, of collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign, and collusion in regards to activity between Americans and Russia directly to manipulate and to impact the integrity as well as the outcome of our election of 2016. I think there's clear evidence, as I indicated yesterday and reaffirmed today, that Russia was meddling in our election in 2016. They have done that previously, from what I have seen, and they have done that for quite an extensive period of time, as meddling by Russian actors in our election process has been something very well known to the powers to be here in Washington, D.C. So the distinction I would offer is collusion is one matter, meddling is a different matter, and I think it's incumbent upon Mueller at this point in time to finish up his investigation, because it is causing a tremendous amount of confusion as well as division in the country as to what folks believe he has been charged in order to investigate. And what he was charged to investigate was that collusion question between Trump officials. And when that question is left unanswered, it brings a lot of instability and a lot of questions about the actual integrity of the election process, which I am very comfortable in saying I see no evidence of any integrity issues with the actual vote outcome of 2016 that would question the integrity of this presidency in regards to its legitimacy.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks, Jason.
Next question came from Mike Baldwin over at the Wellsville Regional News page.
Regarding the press conference following the summit yesterday, is there anything that the president said during the press conference that causes you any pause? Are you troubled? Do you have any concern regarding any of his statements, or do you fully support everything the president said yesterday?
No, as I indicated in my public statement, I do disagree with the sentiment that he offered yesterday in regards to the meddling question. I believe the evidence is clear that meddling did occur in the election process. I trust our intelligence officials on that assessment and that conclusion. I stand by our intelligence officers when it comes to the general work they do on our behalf, and I believe their conclusions are based on the best evidence they have available to them. And so that had caused me some concern in regards to statements that I heard or that were portrayed in the press that the president was counter to. But at the end of the day, I think it's ultimately in everyone's interest to get this investigation done, answer the conclusion question once and for all, and let's move forward with the problems we face as a nation, which are significant, not only with the Russia question, but also domestically, the problems we face here at home.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
It's the Congressman Tom Reed weekly press call on today's Newsmaker Show. Next question came from Ryan Hendrick. He's over in Jamestown. He's an online reporter.
Last week, WNY News Now reported about Tracy Matrano and the unfortunate overdose death of her financial director. which occurred within the past 12 months. Matrano has had in kind of a soft stance on drugs, sometimes calling for reform, sometimes calling for more public awareness, but has not answered direct questions about the relationship between the overdose of her financial director and herself and how close-knit that relationship really was. When it comes to a politician, somebody being directly affected or having an impact on, say, an overdose death in a time where opiate epidemic is at its peak, Tom, how accountable do we have to kind of hold those public figures in the same sense respect their privacy? Where do we draw that line, Tom?
Well, I'm not aware of the situation upon which you premised the question, so it's difficult for me to answer that question. You know, obviously, we are seeing an opioid epidemic across the entire country as well as in the district, and any overdose death is something I'm very sympathetic to, that I care deeply about, making sure that we're instituting the reliefs that we've already got signed into law up here onto the front line of the opioid epidemic, and try to do what we can in regards to giving them the resource not only for prevention and awareness, but treatment, as well as law enforcement and first responders. So I think by that multi-pronged approach, hopefully we can avoid any overdose situation in the future and work to eliminate that crisis from amongst us. But as to the case upon which you asked the question, I don't have anything to offer. Is not aware of any of the details.
All right, Tom. And one follow-up question on a different subject. NRG announcing they're basically pulling out, not repowering the plant as promised in Western New York. Your thoughts to that and the potential financial ramifications going forward as we look to a powerless NRG plant in Dover?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. This is something we have worked tirelessly on here at the federal level, as well as with our state and local partners across party lines. And we had a potential successful outcome in regards to energy repowering with natural gas. But obviously, I think what you see in that facility to now is the symbol of an extreme liberal agenda out of our state capital that is blocking any efforts to develop natural gas in New York State, be it the pipeline that was necessary to be constructed to the NRG facility to make the repowering with natural gas a reality, as well as the overall sentiment in New York State that they've adopted the state capital that they are adamantly opposed to natural gas repowering project, in my opinion, going forward in New York. This is a real consequence of that extreme policy. That is something that hopefully we can change going forward. Now what we have to do is we have to work together, and if you recall, you remember the governor stood with us as we declared victory on the NRG facility, came to Dunkirk, stood with us, and said we will make sure that facility gets going again. And so hopefully we can lure another energy company to that facility. Energy has demonstrated that repowering it with natural gas is a feasible project that can go forward. And I just hope the state capital will send the message that is different than what it sent to this project, that they were going to be adamantly opposed to repowering with natural gas and put roadblocks up everywhere they can. And so it is very troublesome to me, and we will work with any energy developer and state official as well as local official to bring those into the community to get that facility up and running again with a new potential sponsor.
Thank you very much, Tom. You have a good afternoon.
Okay, you too.
And the next question came from Jerry Zaremski at the Buffalo News.
Hey, Tom. How you doing?
Doing well, Jerry. How you doing?
Good, good. Couple questions here about the president's meeting with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. First of all, afterwards, the former CIA director, John Brennan, basically said that Trump's behavior, really taking the word of Putin rather than the U.S. intelligence agencies, Brennan said that was treasonous. Do you disagree or do you agree, and why? Why is it not treasonous?
No, I disagree with his conclusion that that was treasonous behavior. by the president. I do not support that conclusion. Now, obviously, as I indicated, I disagree with the president's statement on the meddling question yesterday. I think there's clear evidence of meddling. I think what the president was trying to articulate, and maybe didn't do it as artfully as possible, was that there was no evidence of collusion in regards to the Russian activity in the Trump campaign. And that is why this investigation is so divisive at the present time, because there's a lot of confusion as to exactly what Mueller's doing and what the investigation is doing. But I don't see treason on display here in regards to what the president did. And I think John Brennan, with all due respect, may be more interested in the political news-making scene than focusing on the real issues of the day in regards to moving the nation forward. Okay.
You know, the president has been much more critical of the Canadian Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister, the German Chancellor, than he has been of Vladimir Putin. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's a question that I'll defer to the White House as to how he has taken his relationship forward with each one of those leaders. I make no bones about it. I think Putin is not a friend. He is an adversary. He is an enemy. But there are things we need to recognize in Russia and our relationship, even as an enemy and as an adversary, that they are a world superpower in regards to the nuclear capacity they have and their position in the world. And they have some unique relationships in areas of the world like Syria, like Iran, like North Korea, and the partnership between Russia and China that could be developed in a way that has us aligning our interests to stabilize those areas and to address those areas in a positive way. So I don't want to rule out any type of relationship with our adversary in Russia because at certain times those adversarial relationships can have common interests that will advance the national security and the security of the American people going forward.
Does it bother you that the president is more critical of Justin Trudeau and Theresa May and Angela Merkel than he is of Putin? And if it doesn't trouble you, why doesn't it trouble you?
Well, obviously, and any relationship with a world leader is something I care deeply about, and our relationship with them is something we can control, and we will continue to be a person who can reach out to any world leader as well as a leader across all spectrums, not only here in the States but across the world, in regards to making sure they know where we stand on the issues. And I'll let the president speak for himself when it comes to what he's doing with these leaders. But at the end of the day, I believe when it comes to leaders of the EU, when it comes to leaders of democracies like Canada, and when you have relationships with a country like Mexico, those relationships are strong. They need to be reinforced, and we'll continue to be a voice to back those relationships up going forward. And I'll let the president deal with the question, how to deal with those leaders. And whether or not it bothers me personally, that is something that I will defer from that question to just say personal feelings on the issue are different than what we can do and what we can control in regards to establishing relationships with those leaders ourselves.
It's the Newsmaker Show and the Congressman Tom Reed Weekly Press Call. When we get back, it'll be our question here from AM 1480 Wlea. Stay with us.
You take flooring for granted, don't you? I mean, if you think about how much wear and tear you put that floor through, why would you even think about buying a cheap floor when you need one? Buy quality flooring from Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering in Almond. Mullins buys in bulk, and that means you save money on quality flooring. They even offer 0% interest for qualified buyers. Shop over 400,000 square feet of major name brand in-stock flooring and get it installed now. And no box store wait. Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering in Almond. Let them floor you.
Checking in now with meteorologist Rob Carolyn. Hey there.
Beautiful morning out there. It is absolutely gorgeous right now. from the southern tier out across, into the Berkshires of Massachusetts, on up into northern Maine, down into Maryland. There's been a little bit of patchy fog this morning in some of the deeper river valleys along the Pennsylvania-New York state border from Binghamton to Jamestown, but that stuff is going to be gone quickly. We're in for a fairly sunny day. We'll see a little bit of high cloudiness this afternoon. I can see it right now moving across Michigan and Ohio. It'll lift across the area later today. Temperatures will be warm, but it's comfortable because the humidity is so low, 80 to 85. We had a sunrise this morning at 5:51 a.m., sunset tonight at 8:42. Clear tonight, comfortable 55 to 60. Beautiful tomorrow, but warmer. Lots of sun. Southwest breeze sends temperatures up to 85 to 90 tomorrow afternoon. Partly cloudy tomorrow night, 60 to 65. Brian, the pattern is going to change during the weekend. Upper level low forms in the Ohio River Valley. Lots of warm, moist air starts to come up from the Gulf of Mexico and the Bahamas. We'll see increasing clouds Saturday, some afternoon showers and storms, breezy 80 to 85. Showers, thunderstorms, and humid weather likely into Sunday. We're up around 80.
Back on Newsmaker, I'm Brian O'Neill. Here's the question we asked. Putting tracking devices on political signs, is that something you believe will catch on as a trend in either the district or the nation? Putting the tracking devices on political signs to prevent signs from being stolen or catch the perpetrators if they steal them?
Well, obviously the campaign made a decision to utilize the technology to find out where a significant number of our signs were repeatedly coming up missing. And obviously, in the well-publicized case where we had an individual, in my opinion, who was stealing those signs, and the technology helped us identify that perpetrator, is something I think is demonstrated to other people that maybe there's a way to deal with this issue that has historically been around in each of the campaigns, but just not able to be pursued because the evidence just wasn't there. That being said, this type of activity of stealing signs, engaging in that type of activity is something I would hope as individuals, and as you saw, prior folks in the campaign against us were removing signs, and we were able to track them back to their homes also. I hope it just demonstrates to people, leave other people's property alone. Let us have an honest and open debate, and let the people decide the question come in November. Maybe that's the lesson I hope that can be drawn from the situation at hand.
The next question was from Rick Miller over at the Wlea Times-Herald.
See, I had to ask again about the president's comments yesterday. I watched that, and Governor Cuomo, he put out a statement. I think they're going to have a real issue as to whether or not the president's actions were treasonous, and whether or not they're going to pursue any action of possible treason. And even some Republican officials have commented on this. McCain called it disgraceful and tragic. And the president, he just seemed to contradict everything that his intelligence agencies had said, and then right after he made those comments, the intelligence agencies went down and said, no, this is what's happening. Why does this keep happening?
Well, I think there's, at the root cause of it, if you're asking me the why question, I think the root cause is there's a tremendous amount of confusion as to what the investigation is trying to investigate, be it collusion versus meddling. And there's no doubt in my mind, and we share the sentiment of the intelligence community that Russia meddled in our election of 2016, as they have in prior election cycles. That is clear to me also, as well as other countries. And we should learn from that situation to protect the integrity of our election process as much as possible from any type of undue influence over the taking of that election, the taking of that election. And the difference between meddling, though, there's a difference between meddling and collusion. And I think that is what's causing a tremendous amount of confusion on the issue, and collusion is a much different situation. And I've seen no evidence presented to me in those intelligence briefings that would demonstrate any type of collusive behavior between the Trump campaign and Russia. Anything that would suggest that the integrity of the election of 2016 was in jeopardy or had been jeopardized. And so From my perspective, I think it's best that we move forward from this situation, recognize the results of 2016 as a legitimate election, and then learn from the situation to try to mitigate and prevent any type of future meddling going forward. I think a lot of this is stemming from a lot of confusion over what the root issue of that investigation is all over.
The collusion isn't a crime, though.
Oh, no, that's a different situation. Collusion, if you're advancing collusion in order to destroy the integrity or upset the integrity of an election process, I can think of a few crimes off the top of my mind that could have been committed in such a situation. And that's why it's critical to understand the distinction here.
And shouldn't we let Mueller finish his investigation, though? Instead, I've heard so many people call for him to end it, and why shouldn't he pursue it until the investigation's over?
The better question is why is it taking a year and a half to answer this question, and millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars that they've had access to, and thousands of pieces of evidence that they've reviewed and not come to a conclusion? I would think a year and a half into this proceeding, we would be at the position to answer the question of collusion once and for all, knowing what I have seen up to this point in time, kind of where that issue is going, and I'll defer to the investigation. They've looked at many more things than I've had access to, given the nature of their authority and their review process. But at the end of the day, a year and a half in, millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars expended, it's time to bring this investigation to its closure because they've had plenty of time and resources in order to do it.
So that's it for the Congressman Tom Reed Weekly Press Call. Now we're going to hear the Senator Gillibrand press call from the other day. We'll skip the part about the legislation she's worked on. We've already covered that both on the air and online. Let's get to the off-topic questions. These questions come from a Syracuse reporter.
Saying that you don't think the president has met his responsibility. Seeing leadership like this, does it ever make you think maybe you should be running for presidency?
Well, I'm very focused on running for my re-election for U.S. Senate. I really am grateful that I had the honor and privilege to serve in our state as a senator. So I'm hoping to do that, and that's all that I'm focused on right now.
Thank you so much. And going a little bit to the SCOTUS nomination, I know that you spoke a lot about Brett Kavanaugh in recent reports, saying that you think his nomination, or if he were to be accepted, would kind of threaten women's rights. Can you talk a little about this SCOTUS nomination?
Yes. One of the biggest concerns I have with Judge Kavanaugh's nomination is that he has a record that shows he is against women's freedom. He doesn't believe that women should be able to make decisions about when and how many children they have. He sided with the decision, and he believes that an employer should get to decide whether women in America should have access to birth control. He not only praised the dissent in Roe v. Wade, but made a statement that he doesn't see women's reproductive freedom anywhere enumerated in the Constitution. I would suggest life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is perhaps the beginning of those enumerated rights, and the fact that we have such a high level of maternal mortality in this country to make it impossible for women to make those important decisions themselves, I think, is an outrage. He also has a very bad record when it comes to providing coverage, health care coverage to all Americans. He believes the insurers have not only First Amendment rights, but believes they're more important than you and I, because he believes that if they want to raise their rates, not cover people with pre-existing conditions, meaning any health issue that anybody has, not offering affordable coverage, I think he is not acceptable on any level as the next justice. He is so outside the mainstream, so ultra-conservative. I think his record is prohibitive when it comes to whether he should be allowed to be the next justice. I hope there is no vote. I hope that we can put it off till after the election, just as McConnell insisted with President Obama, and I hope that he is not supported.
Senator Kirsten Gillibrand there. Those were the off-topic questions. The on-topic questions were about the water legislation that we already covered in the news yesterday on the air and online. It's AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. I'm Brian O'Neill. Thank you for listening to the Newsmaker Show.